Hello, everyone, and welcome to a brand new edition of What is Mrs. Wallace Reading? Because we are all stuck inside practicing our social distancing and being upset that we're not going to be having in school time to see each other, I'm going to start a brand new series. And each week I'll keep you updated on what I am reading to hopefully keep you interested in reading as well. Now, because this is the first edition of it or first episode of it, I'm going to give you an update of what I've been reading since we've been stuck at home since mid-March. And just to give you an idea, uh, any suggestions that you have for me of books you think that I should read, definitely email me. I'll leave my email below. And of course, you can email me what you're reading, and maybe it'll be featured on the next segment. So, again, please share any books you think I should read and any books that you are reading, and that way we can feature them each week. Now, so far, my quarantine reading has included fantasy, realistic fiction, and thriller books. And the one I'm reading right now, which I'll tell you about at the end of the video, is a realistic fiction as well. And I'm excited to finish it because I'm like 2 chapters left. But let's start. So one thing that I started reading right before we were stuck at home to, I guess now, is the Throne of Glass series. So the first book, Throne of Glass, follows this girl who's a famous assassin, and she finds out the truth about her past amidst a competition to become the king's champion. She forges some new friendships with the prince and with the captain of the guard and finds some new love, and also figures out some things about how magic is still within the realm. So if you love fantasy, you'll definitely like this series. This is definitely a YA series, just a heads up on that. Very gory, okay? But I did read Crown of Midnight, Heir of Fire, and Queen of Shadows. So that is 2, 3, and 4 of this particular series. There are 7 books, so I still technically have 3 more books to go. But so far, it's good. It's very detailed. So if you like fantasy, if you like a lot of world building, then you'll definitely like this series. The next book I read was actually not a young adult nor a middle grade book. It was an adult book. Can you believe it? I read an adult book. It was called A Good Neighborhood. So this was actually the Barnes & Noble Adult Book Club book that we didn't get to have because of the quarantine, but it's called A Good Neighborhood, and it's about a tight-knit neighborhood in North Carolina that gets a new neighbor, a very rich new neighbor, and a drama ensues when the daughter of that rich new neighbor and the boy next door kind of fall in love with each other. And there's a lot of drama to it, some politics, some to do with wealth, some to do with race. It's really interesting, but definitely for adults. Also, I read The Kingdom of Back, which I talked a little bit about in one of the chapter 1 read alouds. I highly recommend this book. Kingdom of Back is amazing, especially if you are a musician and you know the struggles of not only learning an instrument but composing music, which is what it's about. So Amadeus Mozart is a real person, and he did have a real sister. And this particular book, Kingdom of Back, is from the point of view of his sister, who again is real and was actually a composer herself, but not famous like her brother. And it's her journey to make her dreams come true, even though her younger brother, Mozart, is getting all the attention. So she ends up using some kind of magic to make her wishes come true, or she thinks is magic. Is it all in her head? Is it real? You got to read to find out. I like this one because the main character's whole goal had to do with not being forgotten. It wasn't so much that she didn't want to be famous, it's just that she wanted people to know who she was and that she, made beautiful music. Not that she needed to have all the fame and glory, but that people would remember her. That's what she was afraid of being forgotten. And because I loved this book so much, and because I got a copy of it in the mail in my out crate, I'm going to be giving it away. That's right. So down below, you'll see an entry form to win the book, The Kingdom of Back, which again, excellent. I highly recommend. So if you would like a chance to enter that, you just fill out the form by the end of this month. So by April 30th, and on May 1st, I'm going to pick out a name, and that person will get mailed the sanitized version of The Kingdom of Back. I promise to sanitize it before I mail it. Another book that I read that is considered young adult is Most Likely. And Most Likely is the Barnes & Noble Young Adult Book Club book for the month of April. So next Friday is when we're going to meet virtually to talk about the book. And this book is actually about 4 friends. They are seniors, 4 friends who are girls. They are seniors in high school, and they're trying to navigate that final year of high school before they all go off to college. And the beginning of it starts with this playground that is going to be demolished, and it's this tradition for the seniors to all sign the jungle gym, but because it's being demolished, it's being roped off. So it starts off very innocently as this struggle to kind of keep the park open and not put this high rise that's going to be there. But then each girl kind of figures out a little bit about who she is and her identity. But the whole premise of the book is that one of them is going to be president of the United States. In fact, the very first chapter is kind of like a flash forward to one of them becoming the inauguration. So one of them becoming the president. You don't know who it is. There's no clues to it whatsoever, but you have to follow each of them and kind of figure out. And throughout the book, each of them gives a good indication that they might be it. Although the last chapter really threw me. It was a complete surprise for me. So this is a young adult book, but it is called Most Likely. I highly recommend it if you like a little bit of drama, as well as some interesting aspects about politics, believe it or not. Another series that I started that I'm not going to finish, and some of you may have read this book, another YA book is Shatter Me. And it's a whole series. Shatter Me is obviously the first one. The last one in the series actually just came out a couple weeks ago. And it's about a girl who's cast off her entire life and imprisoned because of her gift. She can't touch people without hurting them. And it's a futuristic world, so there's a lot of military involved, and she's kind of in this military holding prison. And she's been there for almost a year before she connects with an old classmate who shows her this whole different world than what she knows. If you really like dystopian books, so books kind of about like, you know, 100 years in the future, like what our government's going to look like, are we going, or what our world's going to look like, are we going to be completely collapsed, is it going to be very much like Divergent, things like that. That's what this series favors. So if you liked Divergent, Hunger Games, things like that, you'll like Shatter Me. It wasn't for me, but again, it's okay to read a book and not like it, remember that. So this was a book that I did enjoy, but I don't think I'm going to read the rest of the series. One book that I definitely recommend, and it has been my favorite so far, is, and I read at the very beginning of our quarantine, is called Red Hood. And Red Hood, kind of think Little Red Riding Hood, but not with that premise of the idea of that Little Red Riding Hood being chased by the wolf and everything like that. So remember that idea, right? The Red Hood is about a girl whose legacy actually involves killing werewolves. She doesn't know this until it happens to her. She comes face to face with a werewolf, and she ends up having this unknown power and strength and kills the werewolf. Okay, that's not a spoiler alert. But she didn't know about her family's past until her grandmother helps her piece everything together. And as her classmates are disappearing and turning into werewolves and attacking people, and she kind of figures out who she is and where her place is going to be in the world. But there's also a really great twist right in the middle. So definitely, if you like, it's fantasy, but it's kind of fantasy mixed in with realistic fiction. So if you like those both, please definitely read this. And last but not least, what I'm currently reading, which I mentioned on the last two chapters of, is Focused. And Focused is by the same author, Alison Gerber, that wrote Braced, which I read last summer. Focused was actually on my summer reads this past summer, but I just never got to it. And Braced is about a girl who's in a back brace. Focused is her newer novel, and it's about a girl who finds out that she has ADHD, and she has to deal with kind of the social consequences of it, whether it's acceptable, whether it isn't acceptable. Are there, people like her? Do they deal with it the same ways that she does? Figuring out what the real definition of it, because she doesn't really know. I really like this book so far. However, for me, it's kind of difficult to read because it's written from Clea's point of view. Clea is the main character. I actually did a chapter one read aloud of this book. So if you go to one of the very first episodes of chapter one read aloud, you can hear the first chapter of it. But I found it a little difficult to read because it was from Clea's point of view. So it's a bit all over the place on purpose. It's supposed to mimic what her brain is, what her brain's thinking. So it was really, really interesting. I loved it. This is a middle grade novel. It's not a YA novel, but it still has a lot of drama in it, a lot of really relatable characters. So I definitely recommend reading Focus, which I'm going to read the last few chapters, and hopefully next week I can tell you a little bit more about it without spoiling it. All right, so that is the end of What is Mrs. Wallace Reading. Once again, it won't always be this long. This is just me getting you caught up in what I've been reading since the middle of March. Next week, I'll tell you about any books that I have read or what I'm currently reading. And of course, if there's a book out there that you think I should read during this time, definitely email me, which again, I'll leave below. And if you have a book that you're reading that you really love, I would love to feature you. So please make sure that you email me and let me know what you're reading and what you love or don't love about the book that you're reading. And last but not least, if you would like to win the book, The Kingdom of Back, Fill out that entry form before April 30th, and hopefully you will win a brand new copy, never before read, because I haven't even touched it. It just came in the mail and I actually had already read it, so it's never been read. Pages are nice and crisp, the nice feeling of a new book. If you want a chance to win that, fill out that form by April 30th, and I'll pick a winner on May 1st and mail it off to you. So thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next week on What Mrs. Wallace is Reading.